When you're framing a space like this, there's a lot to coordinate. So it's almost like the less walls you have, the more you've got to put into the thoughts of what the structure of those walls are. We have a culmination of a bunch of different framing techniques here so that we can keep this open space and span these large openings and then also support everything. We're in a high wind zone. We're sitting up on top of a mountain, so we've also got to make sure that we're supported from not just the vertical loads, so your down loads, but also from your lateral loads from the wind. Also, we're not far from Sparta, so we're actually in one of the few zones in North Carolina, which is an earthquake zone. And Sparta was the epicenter of the earthquake that happened in North Carolina a few years ago. So we're also in a seismic zone, which is rare for North Carolina. Something you don't really think of, but when you're building a house like this, you think of it. We started to look at, as we designed the house, is how do we maximize this openness and what's the most cost-effective way to do it? And so this is a great part of the house where you can look at a lot of different framing systems. So your typical framing is what most people know of as a 2x4. One of the great questions on the first day in architecture school, and one of the first questions I ask anybody coming to work for us is, what's the size of a 2x4? So a 2x4 is actually not 2x4 as you would expect. You've got ½ inch of chipboard on each side. So now your wall thickness is actually 2.5. And then a 2x6 is 1.5 by 5.5. LVL is laminated veneer lumber. So an LVL is really a big, thick piece of plywood. They're very strong. They're a lot of glue. They basically are laminated pieces of lumber so that you can get these long spans. So now you have a combination of dimensional lumber, which are your 2x4s, 2x6s. You have your engineered lumber, which are your LVLs and glue lams. We've got a mix of 2x4 walls and then 2x6 walls, which are load bearing. Then that comes up, and here we have a floor truss system, and we use the floor truss system here to span the loft. That is then capped off by the LVLs, and we've got the LVLs here as the edge beam, and then we've got LVLs here over these door openings. Then over here, we've got roof trusses. So here we use these roof trusses to span this opening that then transition to stick framing over there for where the roof slides down. Then, because we wanted the volume, we did look at the option of doing some scissor trusses that actually have a sloped bottom, but it was more cost effective and gave us more of the look that we wanted to by going with rafters and then using the collar ties, which will then be wrapped and become a feature of the open space. So in this one house, we've got a lot of different framing techniques in order to be a cost-effective and sturdy solution. And then that all ties then into the floor slab. So wherever we've got these different loads coming down, so here, for example, there's a footer in the concrete right here that supports all that load. So you've got it going basically from the roof down and then into the slab.